And that's where the psychology comes into understanding why when you go out to other individuals who look like you and they turn away from you, it's more than meets the eye, in my personal opinion. It's systematic. That is something that has been designed a long time before either one of us here were born, and it's continuing to play out, where if we can keep them apart, and that's just my personal belief, and if I piss somebody off, I really don't care. But that's what it's about. If we can get them in a situation where they fight against each other and they stay away, then they can never get to a place of greatness from where they came from. That's what it is. And you could read about it.
And I know you like to read, darling. So, your perception. I'm grateful for where you are. I'm grateful for how you think. And that's not to say anything less than on another man's level, but your perception is different. So we cannot speak for all African American men. And when you say they're insane, when they come out and they don't do anything, that they're insane.
No, come out and go back.
Oh, come out and go back. Then they're insane.
Well, that's the definition of insanity.
Yeah, that's the definition of insanity. Exactly. But again, are we running out of time? Okay, again, your perception is different and you have just overcome, and that's great. I love to meet people like yourself who's able to take a bad situation and make it, work for them.
And let me highlight, if I will, because when you really do the research and you look at the history, what else could we have done? This is what he's doing, because what else could he have done? There are some individuals who stay stuck in it because of the perception. But within our history, it's like, well, this is what I've been given, and we've come out of it and made a mountain out of, in reverse is what I'm saying. We've done so many great things with the little scraps that we have. That's why we forget about certain things, because it's like, this is where I came from, and look at what I've accomplished, so I'm good. And that's what's keeping some of our youth, that's what's keeping some of our men who are committing suicide, because they're not even really paying attention to what's underneath.
And so when you say to me that you meet young men who haven't gotten to where you've gotten, and you have a conversation with them, I applaud you.
Absolutely.
Because young men need to see people like yourself who have overcome a struggle and still moving forward. So I applaud you for that. I applaud you for being a male, period, and coming on this show and sharing with us, because that does not happen. Men have a hard time expressing their emotions, expressing how they feel, all of that, and you were brave enough to come here, so that tells me that you're different.
But let's even say this too, if I can. It's not only just that they have a hard time. Some of them, given with what they've gone through, have disassociated, so they don't connect with their feelings anyway, because they don't know.
I believe that the topic in which that we speaking about, being that this is a show based off of mental health of those subjects, the issues that might be wrong with them inside is what I think we should focus on, because I feel like for a person, I feel like a lazy person, I feel like there's something wrong, there's a depression, you get what I'm saying? And the way to handle their depression is in a sloth-like
manner.
And all you've just said is stigmas to us. That's all I hear.
That's all I heard.
Well, and the thing is that the words that you used absolutely are the stigmas, but a person who is depressed does have trouble getting out of bed, and they do have trouble even thinking and functioning on a daily basis. That's not laziness, and it's not being a sloth. Help me with that word.
Okay.
But it is depression. It's a mental, and I know we are going to have to, we'll come back, we'll be right back. Thanks so much. We're going to take a break.
Okay.
You know what? I appreciate what you're saying, because there's passion behind it. You're gonna feel it from me, but it has nothing to do with you, because these are things that I hear, and that is your perception from what you've been given within this community. Like, that's what it is. It's like if you see somebody who doesn't get up, because we are taught to go, go, go. Because if you don't go, 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 you're either gonna get whipped by the slave master or whatever have you. So it's like, get up and move. And so we've done that, but we've gotten up and moved so much that we forget about the psychological aspect and not taking care of that. So when you look at somebody who just absolutely can't do it, you think, oh, you lazy. You need to get up. Like, I'm getting up. I don't have much, but I'm getting up and I'm doing something with it. And it's like, that person physically can't even get up to brush their teeth. That's what it feels like. Like something is sitting on their chest and they cannot get up. They want to, but they can't. Can you honestly say that you haven't had days where it's just a little rough for you?
I've had days where...
Because Tony, I know and you know that because your skin is brown, you have been profiled.
I've been told by Caucasians that I'm surprised that you've been in business for 4 years because you're black.
That's a microaggression.
That's exactly kind of what we were talking about. That is white people making a judgment about you.
But you hear it so much, I don't mean to cut you off, but you hear it so much that you get used to it that it's not that big of a deal.
I think that we allow certain things to condition us. Yes. And so we overlook them and we try to make excuses for them as if they're not there and they don't exist when that is not true.
That particular restaurant, you have the same customers, elder customers, Caucasian customers, that will come up there, sit in the same spot, everything the same way every time they come up there. That's understood. At that time, I would be working 3 stations by myself easily. And if I'm missing something, this older white guy, he used to come up there every other week, every other day sometimes. I worked up there almost a year. And he'll say something like, boy, hurry up with that stuff. Or he'll even tell me, nigga, bring me that plate here. And I ignore him. I go tell my manager. I walk to my manager, I tell my manager, and I go back to my station. My managers even came to me and say, hey, listen, I don't know how you do it. It's the mental, it's how people think and how to handle situations. If they're mentally inclined, they're thinking, again, I can't person it, it's all in the mentals and how that person thinks, handle, how that person feels or perceives or reacts and responds.
So what you've told me is that you know how to regulate your emotions.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know how to regulate your emotions. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people who don't know how to do that.
And I know, Shauna, you want to say something. I just want to say something real quick when it comes to that strong part, because that's something that affects me, and that's something that affects you, and that's something that's going to affect her. It's because we have that stigma where it's like, oh, she can handle it because she's doing this, and that strong black female syndrome. But you don't know is that behind the doors, we're depressed.
Yes.
Because we're trying to keep it up. And people don't offer help because it's like, oh, well, she can do it. Because what else am I gonna do?
I so much.
We're not even taping. It's okay.
You are.
It's okay. No, it's okay.
So,
Talk through it, Shauna.
So, what struck me is you're working in this place where somebody is just talking to you like that every day. So what if you were a single mom taking that? You're a single mom who can't walk away from that paycheck. And to have to listen to that on a daily basis and take that stuff, and it's almost like I'm paying you, so you just got to deal with it. I don't even know where I'm going with that.
So again, I can't blame nobody for what they do. Again, what I want to make a comment earlier, it's not so much of me overcoming, it's so much of me understanding what a human is. I understand that a human is born imperfect with the ability to make their own decisions. Once you understand that, you can't hold a human responsible, because it was born imperfect. We're born on God. We're not born Christ. We're not born perfect.
And this is not against you, so please don't take it that way. I'm just really blunt and direct. But that's just conditioning of you living to what the white man gave you, which was the Bible, which tells you that you weren't born perfect. Because let me tell you something, we're all born perfect. You excuse my language, but what's up is society. We're all born perfect. And then society comes and introduces
Welcome back to Intake. We're here with our guest, Anthony Countryman. I just want to say, Anthony, thank you for all of your input.
Thank you for allowing us to have an open, honest dialogue with you.
Yes, ma'am.
And I agree with that. And I hope that you didn't feel that we were attacking you in any way, shape, or form.
Yes, ma'am.
I really do. We do really appreciate you.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
You're a great individual, and we appreciate you sharing with us. Mr. Tony,
Yes,
for
ma'am.
being here. Thank you. So, ladies, I have to say that was a very interesting interview with Mr. Anthony. One of the things that I want to address is that no matter what we talked about, he continued to say, but we have to deal with the mental health. You know, it's the mental health side. It's the mental health. And that is one of those big stigmas, because everything we do deals with the mental health. And that's the problem. People are not aware that everything you do, you take in cognitively and you process it. And so if you address issues like, okay, this is outside of mental health, then what you do is you disassociate yourself with issues.
And what I picked up on, and what we were having the communication issue about, we were all having the communication issue about, which I think, and you guys tell me, I think this is probably a lot of guys. I'm so tired. I'm just using that language.
That's okay.
Yes, I am.
That's all right.
So I made it through because I'm stronger, and because I am not insane. There's nothing wrong with me. But if you can't get through something similar, that means you're weak. That means you're lazy. That means there's something wrong with you that is different from me. And he kept saying, I'm special, I'm unique. That's that terminal uniqueness that we talk about a lot. So, and it keeps me protected. If I believe that it's an issue that you have, and I'm just going to barrel through it and not really look at the effects of it, then that means I'm all right, and I don't really have to look at it or connect the dots.
And unfortunately, a lot of people do it, and a lot of people do it in the African American community, which is what we're talking about right now. I mean,
I think some of it just has to do with what I had said. I don't even know if it was on camera or not, but it's just what you've had to do. And so therefore it became a maladaptive coping skill. You just kept it with you because it provided you with some what you would consider positive results. So let me just keep it going until eventually you get to a point where you just can't handle it anymore. And within the African American community, it manifests itself maybe not in mental health, but in physical health.
Yes. That's why we are known to have hypertension,
Heart disease,
all of
diabetes.
that. Diabetes. All of that.
It presents itself in behaviors. Talk about diabetes. You have individuals who even they know they have diabetes, and they're giving themselves a shot with insulin while they're eating fried chicken
or drinking a lot of alcohol.
He used a term. He said, have you all ever heard "fake it till you make it"?
Did you just want to jump out the seat?
How many times have we heard that? Fake it till you make it.
Well, in substance abuse, you hear that all the time where you just fake it till you make it. And you were going to say something? And, sometimes I think it just needs to be reworded differently so that people understand it. It's not necessarily faking it. Keep working at it. You're trying. And the more you try, the more you're going to pick up speed. And eventually you're going to get better at it. You're going to recondition yourself in a different way as opposed to the way that you conditioned yourself before.
That is so very true. Ladies, let's get off of that because there's a lot of things that I want to touch on. The Journal of the National Medical Association has this, and a lot of people are coming up with these ideas of there is a trauma gene in African Americans, and they're looking at this trauma gene from our ancestors in slavery. Well, some professionals are agreeing with that. Now, I have my own ideas on that. I want to see what you all think.
I definitely agree with it, and I know that they've done some studies with Holocaust survivors and understanding that their DNA has changed, and the trauma that the initial individuals who suffered through the Holocaust dealt with has been passed on through their lineage. And it's about really thinking about for example, if you had somebody, we talk about hypertension, right? You have hypertension now as a result of, let's say, a trauma that you haven't dealt with. It manifested itself physically. You're then passing that on to your child.
And and my perspective is different. I don't totally agree with that. I believe that it's not so much a gene, it's the awareness that I went through, or my ancestors went through this, and especially with the African American community, when you talk about a gene of trauma, okay, so we went through trauma and slavery, I'm aware of that. But then every time I turn on the TV and I see a young man being shot down, or I see, myself as an African American sometimes being profiled, I think the PTSD or the trauma that they're talking about is because, yes, I'm aware of the history, and while we have moved forward, we still have a lot more movement to go. And so, yeah, I have trauma because I'm still dealing with some issues. And I'm dealing with the issues based on the society that I live in.
Well, and I don't know enough. I don't know enough, and I need to do more research about the gene. But what I can speak on is that we've talked about this quite a bit, actually, since we've been doing the show, that we learn how to react. We learn about our environment. We learn about things from our family of origin. Well, if that mistrust, if that trauma because that comes with a big old set of behaviors too, right? A huge set of behaviors of that hyper awareness and the fear and all those things, the control. If we pass that to our children, that this is how we need to behave, and they pass that to their children, then it's passing behavioral reactions, and we learn not to trust those people, and we don't want to go there, and we need to react this way to that situation so we won't have a negative result.
I agree.
That's what I see as just continuing down the line.
Yeah, and so when I say we're dealing with, even though we've made it, to this point, we still have some issues. But how many African American mothers out there that if you talk to them, they'll say, when my son leaves the house, I tell him, when you're driving, if a police pull you over, just keep your hand on the steering wheel. Don't make any sudden movements. I've heard that too often. Or I tell him, it's okay. And I'm not going against police officers because there are some great ones out there. And I've met them. There are great ones out there. But unfortunately, there are some that, they.
You know what, to be quite honest, it has, just to get that whole label off, it has almost nothing to do specifically with police officers anyway.
No.
It's just people perceive you as, and I've done the same thing, with my son. I have 4 sons that I have to worry about. And so when he goes out, one of the things that I say is, you want, as a parent, usually your phrase is to behave, and I want you to act out there as if I'm watching you. But, with the way that things are now, I let him know, you need to remember that people perceive you as a black man. I am the only one who look at you as if you're a black boy, because I know that, but you are a black male first, and you need to remember that, and there's a certain perception about you. So I need to know where you are at all times, and I hate to do that because I'm passing something on right there.
Right.
But I don't know what else to do.
The thing is, though, that's part of that. I'm sorry. That's a fine line that we walk, right? And this is where privilege. Comes in. I have never had to have a conversation with my son like that. I've had to have different conversations with my son because my son is part of a marginalized group of people. But I have never had to have that conversation. And I just went over, I think I told you guys, I read this 88-page report, the World Health Organization, and it was one of the things, and you just hit on it, that's what I was thinking about. African American males are perceived as being older from the get-go. And they are perceived as being more, that discrimination and the judgment comes in. The overall perceived as being more culpable, more older, more aggressive. So they are automatically, they're not seen as a child. They could be 14 years old. They are seen as a grown man, and they are going to.
And we see that in such cases when children are when they get arrested and they are dealt with a sentence and they're taken to court, and I can't remember the word because I'm so damn tired, but they're
Certified
tried
as an adult.
As an adult.
Certified as an adult.
Thank you. Yeah.
And so that's what I mean. And trust me, I'm not a scientist, so I don't look at genes, but I have my perspective. And from my perspective, I'm looking at how we have to almost safeguard our children in different areas as brown-skinned people, as people of color. And we have to give them speeches before they leave the house because they are always seen as a black person first, an African American person first. I worked in corporate America for a long time. We talked about this the other day and got a review and said I was doing a great job. I was training the people right. I was doing everything, but I don't smile enough. And I'm like, what does that have to do with, my job here
being productive,
when I'm working for managers who never smile, but their skin color was different. And so because I never smiled, there was a problem. And I had to have this whole conversation with my supervisor and my manager because I was intimidated. Yeah, because I intimidated people because I did not smile.
Yeah. No, and here's the thing, and I think that this is one of I feel very privileged to be a part of this because I know it happens. I see it happen. I witness it on a regular basis, and that's what really struck me when Anthony Tony, right? When Anthony was speaking, because there's this huge population, and not everybody, but there's still this enormous population of white people that want to keep you in your place, and will judge you based on the skin color.
And let's, I don't mean to cut you off. Let's also give light to there are some people who rather just stay in that place because getting out of that place would mean I have to make a couple of changes that I'm uncomfortable with.
Right.
Exactly.
And again, there are a lot of awesome people on every walk of life. That I have been, because I look like this. People come to me with their stupid, and they lay their stupid on me. So then I know who they are.
I get you.
Yeah.
And let's, if we can, bring it back because we talked about a lot of stigmas and we talked about a lot of perceptions that are put out there. This is what holds individuals who look like Tony and who look like me and you from going in and getting help because of the perception. And we have a lot of them who stay away. And I just wanted to take a minute and read the history of racism in research and the cultural experience of racism in the general public make it difficult to gain the trust of Black participants. So there are key events that have occurred in our history that have prevented Black individuals from really trusting the medical field, and you connect that to mental health, and that's the way they look at it. You have the Tuskegee experiment where there were participants who were denied knowledge of things that were happening to their body. I mean, that's one that sticks out a lot, but then we also have a vast history of harmful experiments that were done. We have gynecological surgery that was performed on slaves, experiments that were performed on Black prisoners, and that was in 1950. And then there was research that was done on Black boys on aggression in just 1990. So I mean, these things that have occurred, they shed a discolorful light on the medical field, and unfortunately as therapists we are lumped into that medical field, and so the African American community, I get it, is like, well, I can't really mess with them because look at all the stuff that you've done before. And I want to encourage individuals, if you're watching the show, there was a lot that was said here and it got really passionate because we need help.
We need so much help. And like you said, Shauna, there are a lot of great people out there. I mentioned officers, and I mention officers because, again, I told you I work with at-risk youth, and I hear it a lot. And when a young man tells me that he's afraid that when an officer comes to him, he's afraid he's going to be shot, that concerns me. But it's not so much white officer either. It's African American officers as well. So I want to make it clear that it's not Caucasian officers that I'm talking about. And And what we try to do is show young people, because in my day we had Officer Friendly. I don't know if there's an Officer Friendly still, if it still exists. And so we try to help young people to see that officers are not evil. They're not the worst people out there in the world, but when they're looking at things going on in the media, their perception is different. And when mom and dad is telling you that, look, be careful,
Yeah.
Then I think that's where the trauma and that's where the stress is coming from, because they're hearing that they have to be careful because their skin is darker than others. And that's where that stress is coming in, that a lot of people are putting on us based on our history. We need to take a break, you guys. We'll be right back. When we come back, we're going to do an interview with Miss Monique Curtis from Daughter to Daughter.
We're just providing that wraparound service to let mom know you're not alone. You know, you won't be ostracized for having this concern about your daughter or your son.
Right.
There won't be any retaliation.
Right.
You know, for you going to the school to advocate for your child. It's your right.
Very nice.
Yeah.
I'm stuck here because you said there won't be any retaliation for just being concerned about your child at the school. Are you finding that there is some retaliation when parents do try to go in, and especially African American parents try to go in and say, hey, you know, I have some concern with my child and what is going on in the school? Do you find that happening?
If you're looking for more information about a topic that was discussed on one of our shows, please visit intake.tv and check out our resource page.
If you're a professional who would like to be on the show, or an individual who has struggled with mental health and would like to be a guest, email us at info@intake.tv.
Follow us on all of our social media platforms.
Intake is the place to be.
It's because